actually, just updates on what may have been coming through my pipeline, at least in terms of recent OSPRs. And actually, there was another one too. Yeah, and so I just want to let everyone know that in terms of like, there is now a V1 of the grades API. This is work that came in from Microsoft. And the V1 includes support for bulk retrieval of learners' grades. So that got merged, I think, last week. The Microsoft is now also helping us. Is anyone from Microsoft on? Because they can talk about it. No.
Not that I can tell.
Yeah, I can tell. Yeah. And Microsoft is also working on adding support for us to enforce OAuth scopes. So OAuth scopes is a mechanism for us to add authorization to to OAuth, so that when people make API calls with OAuth tokens, we'll be able to, endpoints can enforce what their capabilities are with that token. And anyway, I can go into more details on that if anyone has further questions, but I just wanted to let you know that that's happening. Once that support is there, the advantage is that then university partners and content partners and enterprise partners, whatever, like organizations will be able to finally make calls to our APIs on edX.org and possibly also on your OpenEdX instances, because now you'll be able to limit what access they have. So for instance, a course team can access grades for their learners, but only for the learners in their course that are enrolled in their courses. As opposed to right now, without OAuth scopes, when they call our grades API, they have access to all learners' grades. If we didn't, if they did get a hold of a token. So right now on edX.org, we don't actually issue tokens to people. So, but now with OAuth scopes, we'll be able to issue tokens, knowing that we'll be able to limit their access. So, any questions on that?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we're excited to have that feature roll in. Very excited for it.
Okay, awesome, cool. And then another OSPR that I forgot to add to the agenda was something that recently Appsembler. So is Omar on the call? Yeah, Omar, do you want to just talk about your recent merge?
Sure. Yeah, it's like it came handy just before the call. Thanks to Nimisha and Gabe while he's not here. So yeah, this is an effort that has been started by like really a while ago by the Edunix guys, by Felipe. So, and it was so much different. So when it was started, but for logistic reasons, and then I'm not sure why the original request has been abandoned. So, and a lot of customers at Appsembler have asked for it, and it's a cool feature anyway. I mean, most of the services that we connect nowadays actually sends HTML branded emails. So I started working on it, and then edX Ace came in, and which had to be updated to support Django email, which is because it was supporting sell-through only. So essentially, it's a 2 per request thing that lays out the infrastructure to support the whole. To add support for HTML email templates for the whole platform. So currently now it supports, among other few things, the password reset and probably the forum notification. I'm not sure about that because I didn't work on the forum notification, but definitely the password reset now supports HTML branded templates. I'm gonna be rolling out, and hopefully not just me, we plan to open multiple PRs to support the rest of the emails, such as enrollment emails. Probably we'll convert bulk emails because this one is painful to migrate. So yeah, I mean the current solution at edX, which is, I don't take credit for it. It's really awesome because it allows the fork maintainers like me to maintain their HTML templates, email templates in code, which is like as opposed to Django admin, and so you get to use your IDE or whatever editor you like. So this is a really cool feature. And now we're planning to do 100% coverage for the platform, so everyone can get their own branded emails.
Yeah, thanks, Omar. And just to reiterate, so edX ACE, ACE stands for Automated Communication Engine, and it is our notifications framework that we recently implemented, I think, September or so forth. And that is a way that we plan for, features to user-facing features and even like transactional, feature messaging that we want to have in the platform to send messages to learners or to any user, essentially. And those messages could be email messages. They could be, push notifications, in-browser notifications, and whatnot. Right now, we only have support for email. We had support for just sail-through, and Omar just helped us add support for emailing via Django emails library. So anyway, so that's there. Hopefully there will be an OAuth coming, just to let people know that that is now the framework that we would like to embrace for notifications in the platform. So any questions on that? And thanks, Omar, for going through that process. I know it was a long process and it was hard to get in sync with things, but like you said, it is a milestone and a pivotal improvement for our platform. So thanks a lot for going through that.
Yeah, sure, Nimisha. Thank you for your support. I mean, I'm sure the GDPR have swamped you with a lot of work.
Yeah. GDPR, PCI, there's a few, commitments that have bogged us down. Thank you.
Yeah, because I mean, the silence have like, there has been a sudden silence that correlates with GDPR. So I guess that's the reason. But thank you.
Cool.
GDPR is something I think we all have to deal with. All right, and I think you have like a couple of OEPs to talk about, or?
Yeah, so I wanted to, Jeremy's not on the call, so unless John Baldwin, he reviewed that the OEP on Python dependency. John, do you want to just mention it on behalf of Jeremy?
Well, it was really about that there's a lot of content in the document, and I was trying to think of, okay, what is the expertise level of the target audience for reading the OEP? And so...
Do you want to just give a quick background in case people haven't, just what the OEP is?
Okay, so the OEP is really, it's about doing the package management for all the Python packages that one needs to include in Open edX, in edX platform. Currently so with Python, there's a package manager called pip, and there are requirements files, and pip reads through the requirements files and loads them. When you have a large project that has a lot of packages, it can get complex, and you can have conflicting versions of packages. So there is a tool that Jeremy talked about in the OEP that helps resolve those conflicts and helps one manage large and complex packages. And from what I understand from communicating with Jeremy in the PR, is that this issue of the package management is a recurring issue. So therefore, he put down very useful information in the OEP that helps people get started. The challenge is when you have material as a single source that you're providing for both like a beginner and an expert. So what I'm looking at is that's a great kind of initial source of material, and that brings some other questions that I have, like on OEPs and the role and purpose, but I don't want to get too far afield. So I think that it is a great starting point to then break out and provide different levels of material for the different user expertise to help people work with the requirements package requirements in Open edX.
Okay, yeah, cool, thanks. That sounds, that's a great summary. And maybe what we could do, John Mark, is parking lot discussion around OEPs, or, because I want to make sure we have enough time for the demos too. Yeah, so, because that's great feedback. And the other thing is that, by the way, like our our Django cookie cutter repo, right, will also have a lot of these things out of the box. So we're hoping like the OAuth is actually capturing the decisions and the, exactly what's happening, in detail. But in terms of like for onboarding or for people to use the features and decisions, it should be hopefully a no-brainer because it's all in the cookie cutter. But I take that point. So sounds good.
Okay.
And then the other thing, the next thing I wanted to just talk about is an OAuth that is coming, and we're actively working on a draft for it. And JM, tell me if there's a better way of coordinating this conversation. But this is actually a question to the community about what we're thinking here. So essentially, right now, as you know, there's a lot of old features or old technologies and different things that are in our platform that have just accumulated over time. And we want to have a good process that works both for the community as well as our index engineers at home to remove and deprecate those old things. Yeah. So, and this is very important that we're aligned because in terms of how much notice do you need and what are the communication channels that we use to notify the community? So if you can imagine that we have an alternative to some feature, let's say, let's say it's there's an old registration and login API right now in our platform, and we want to get rid of it. And, because now everyone should use a new logistration API that we've implemented. So there's a decision that, yes, we should go ahead and deprecate and remove it, especially because now there's a viable alternative that's been field tested, and now we are more sure that the old one can now go away. So that decision has to be made for deprecation. Then there's a second thing about communicating that we are deprecating it, and then giving there enough notice of, okay, now you guys have this much time before we're going to actually remove it.
Yeah.
So this is a question for the community, and is this the right forum? Is this a good way of asking that? And maybe we can time box that discussion. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good way to begin the discussion. Because the question that immediately comes to mind is, how long of a period of deprecation is needed for people, no longer depend on, whatever feature it is. Some projects go through, they'll allow a deprecated feature to last for 2 release cycles or 1 release cycle. And we just have to come to agreement on what is, what makes sense for us and what would people, I guess part of the discussion would be helped if we can come up with some specific examples of things we'd like to deprecate so that people understand, that's what I need to be looking out for.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. And I can share a wiki page that we started on possible deprecation. Things that we want to remove.
Here we go.
So I'll put that in the chat.
Cool. Oh, there we go. So everybody see that in the chat window?
Yeah, this is still a work in progress. Wiki, we haven't filled out like all the fields in the table and whatnot, but there's like an old shopping cart implementation that is now replaced by an e-commerce service. Yeah. Microsites should now instead be using like a new site configuration thing. Course structures API, that one, by the way, is already in progress. But like that one we had announced 2 years ago, and now most people have already updated to the course blocks API, which is the replacement for it. And I think when we are determining, so you guys can take a look at that. When we're determining this, by the way, like I think we want to make sure that the engineering team, whether that engineering team is inside, is an edX employee or from the Open edX community, like we would love to get Open edX community support and also helping us remove things that should no longer be there. So, so that engineering team, if after they've decided that something can be deprecated, we want to make sure that it's not that long of a lead time, to wait, because if that time is right, then that time is right. And So I don't know. So this is a question for the community, like in terms of your OpenEdX instances. Let's say that the next named release won't happen till June, and right now it is March. So if we send out a deprecation notice in March, and then like let's say in 2 weeks we start removing the code, but then you still have until the next named release until you'll probably get the removal.
Right.
So like, is that type of thing gonna work out for you guys?
So basically one release cycle. And I'd be very interested in hearing everyone's feedback on that. First of all, what do you think about that? And second of all, what's the right forum to have this discussion?
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to like write up some notes, we can either have that on Slack or on the mailing list. That sort of discussion is probably better on the mailing list than Slack.
Well, we are going to create an OAuth jam.
Oh, right. Okay.
So we can just have it on the OAuth itself also.
Okay.
Yeah, this was just like a sort of a broadcast out that we're having this discussion. If you want to wait until the OAuth's out, then do that. Otherwise, if there's any input you want to give right now while we're drafting the OAuth, then this is also a good time, especially to the synchronous conversation. Okay. And then I can capture notes that we would then embed in the OAuth.
Sure. And so once we do the OAuth, we will communicate that in all the usual channels. So be on the lookout. And then thank you, Julio, for commenting. He says, for me, 1 or 2 named releases seems like a reasonable time frame for comments. So thank you. I think we'll look to get more comments on that. Otherwise, I think, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think March to June seems too little. But so if you were to announce we're deprecating X, then I think you basically like up until up until June is sort of comment period, and then in the next game release is where you get rid of it.
Right.
So you kind of want to have like.
I think that's what she said actually, but.
No, well, because I thought she said that it would be announced in March, and you immediately 2 weeks later or something start removing it. And then get rid of it within the, and that seems too short.
Oh, so meaning that you, if people's OpenEdX instances are generally using named releases, then what I mean to say is that like on the master branch, we may start removing it, but you won't actually get the removal of it until you upgrade to your new name release in June. Right? And the other thing that we can think about is also like maybe we have different notice periods for whether or not it's an API versus whether or not it's like a feature. I mean, I don't know.
Right. I mean, just as an example for the just because of the things that I'm at Stanford. So for us, old Mongo getting removed is probably problematic because we have a whole bunch of old courses, like courses that use it and they're long running courses, as well as the shopping cart. We're planning on getting rid of it, but I'm not sure when that's happening. So like, for example, so I think one important thing is to have a comment period of, hey, who's still using this feature and how bad would it be if we got rid of it tomorrow? You know what I mean? Like, and that seems like a good start just because some people might be depending on it. And if you get rid of it in the next name release, that might be a problem for some people.
Okay. Yeah. And I think like, for instance, things like Mongo, old Mongo removal, I mean, we would definitely have a migration story along with it. So whether it's a management command you run or whatnot, but yeah. Okay, sounds good. Yes, that's definitely good input, and I'll definitely take it back to our team here. And like I said, we'll have an OEP shortly available so keep a lookout on it, and please post your comments there.
All right. One funny little anecdote to add there. You'll be happy to note that the free account of Zoom only gives me 40 minutes for meetings. So while you were talking, I put in my credit card and upgraded the account so that we don't get terminated in 10 minutes. So yeah.
Thank you, John Mark.
I'll be invoicing that to my manager shortly. Anyway, so okay, that sounds like a good lively discussion that we'll be having. And that will definitely not something that we'll take lightly and make a quick decision on. That's something we'll have to think about carefully. especially depending on what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's always tricky. Before we go to demos, okay, anything else about OEPs, Nimisha, before you want to?
No, yeah, I'm good. That sounds good. Thanks. I think John Baldwin had something.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
On the OEPs, how long of a cycle do OEPs cycle internally before they become public, or do they become public right away?
We don't actually cycle OEPs internally, but there might be like a group of people or team of people working on an OEP.
Okay.
Yeah, and so like for instance, this one, like it's there's an architecture team, and like there's two or three of us who are in discussions trying to figure out like what might possibly work that we want to put in the draft, and then as soon as the draft's ready, we're going to put it out there for earlier comments. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, so before we go to John for his demo of figures, just a couple of housekeeping items I wanted to go over. Hawthorn. We extended the period for Hawthorn just because we were doing a lot of stuff on GDPR, and we thought it would be irresponsible to not include that in this next release, especially given that everyone has to do some kind of GDPR implementation. I cannot tell you the details of what's going into the implementation because I'm just not aware of it. But if you guys want us to include that in a future version of this Hangout, I can have someone come on and talk about what we did there. So if that's something that you want to see, just let me know. But the extent of that is we're not closing or we're not forking the Hawthorn branches until after the GDPR code is finished, which will be in the next couple of weeks. And then we'll cut a release candidate of Hawthorn just in time for the conference, and then have like a burn-in period of a few weeks. So that's kind of the plan for Hawthorn. Any questions about Hawthorn before I move on? Okay. And then, and the question, no, GDPR is not being backported to Ginkgo. If somebody wants to take that on, more power to you. We are not. The other thing is around docs. Some of you noticed that our API documentation was horribly out of date or had just disappeared altogether. It disappeared altogether because it was horribly out of date, and we were unable to build our API docs, unfortunately. So we, for whatever reason, we were not able to get Sphinx to build the docs properly. So we basically just pointed, for those links to the API docs, we just point them to the appropriate places in the code repo so that you can actually just see the API code yourself. So if anyone wants to help us build that and fix that permanently, yes, Nimisha, go ahead.
Yeah, JM, I don't know if you're aware of this, but like the latest thing on that is that we actually did integrate edX platform with Swagger, and that is merged, and it is on the master branch for sure. So definitely on your Open edX instances, you'll be able to just go to /API-docs to get the Swagger tool to see the docs. And then there's discussion right now in terms of whether or not this is actually even enabled on courses.edX.org. And so, stay tuned for exactly that. And I think right now we're moving towards enabling it on our production environment as well. So you could definitely interact with the Swagger tool to get the docs.
Oh, cool. Thanks for that update, Nimisha.
We'll update and update the Open edX docs to point to that. So.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So
can I have a question?
Yeah.
So the GDPR work, I've been following it lightly via GitHub, and I'm supposed to like dig deep into it to see what does it have, like what kind of API, what kind of management command, and so on. So it seems that there is an overwhelming amount of work. Is that correct?
I mean, I can't speak to that precisely, and I'm not sure anyone on this call is really that familiar with our solution. I don't know, Nimisha, if you have any, or George, I don't know if you guys have any.
Hi, so actually, I just jumped into the conference room with Nimisha.
Mr. Mesnick, hello.
This is Brian.
Yeah, so this is Brian Beggs. How are you guys? I run the platform, the data engineering squads. Yes, there is a lot of, there have been a lot of pull requests related to the GDPR work. We have tried our best to isolate most of the changes to be internal to the edX platform itself as much as we can. There is also a Python script in a different repository that we're using. The basic of the approach is that we are providing API endpoints to do the GDPR deletion, or as we're calling it, the retirement. And the plan here is to have an external script that will call all of those endpoints to actually do the deletion itself. In conjunction to this, there are some front-end UI changes that go along with it as well. So yeah, it's not, I wouldn't classify it as small.
All right, yeah. So it's not just me.
No. Cool. All right. Any other questions before we go on to show and tell? All right. So when I use the term show and tell, I guess that's really an American reference. For those of you not United States, you may not get that. But for those of us in the States, when we grew up in elementary school, we all grew up with this thing called show and tell, where we bring things to school and show it off to our friends. So if you had something really cool at home, like a video game, you would be the envy of all of your class. Anyway, but so a lot of places in the United States, you'll see or hear that nomenclature, which I'm repeating here. So today, Mr. Baldwin from Appsembler was kind enough to volunteer to show off figures. So I think you can share your screen, but if you have trouble with that, let me know. I don't think I need to give you permissions or anything, but
I'm working on it right now.
Oh, hey, fantastic. I see your
screen. Awesome. All right, so just getting my bearings here. Start with first slide, view. John Mark had asked me to put together a couple of slides. So, of course, as I start thinking about it, oops. All right. Exit full screen here. I need my cheat sheet here. So I'm just going to go right now with, just kind of scroll it, make it bigger. Everybody can see this okay, right?
Yeah, looks great. Thank you.
Okay, sorry, thanks. All right, so just kind of walking through, start out in the beginning here. I think, all right, so I'm John Baldwin, software engineer at Appsembler, and for the past while have been working with our front-end developer, Matej Grozdanovich, on Figures, which is our analytics and reporting app that is replacing our in-house app. Now, so kind of for context, so I'm going to go through slides quickly, but please stop and call me if you have questions. I can't see you, so please use your voice. Is that we've got 3 options for reporting today. We have the instructor dashboard, insights, and raw data dumps. What we found with the instructor dashboard is our customers found that downloading the reports were too limiting, and that led us to develop our reporting app that helped to do the customized reports for our customers. Insights is complex and requires significant infrastructure and expertise to operate. And it makes it an expensive option. And the data dumps require expertise on the customer end. It's simple for us to schedule that, put it up onto a bucket and for them to get it, but it requires the extra talent, extra skills on the customer side. So therefore, each of these options pose their challenges and limitations, which led us to Figures. So at this point of its life cycle, Figures is what we'll call a lightweight analytics app. What it provides is for site-wide metrics, therefore aggregate of data for all the classes, plus it provides for per-course metrics. And the goal of Figures is to fill the gap between Insights and the LMS instructor dashboard. We've open sourced it. It is, you can go to this repo and you can see our work in progress in the code there. And all right, going on to the next. All right, so how it works. All right, so Figures is a Django reusable app. It is external to edX platform. And so one has to install it, as we were talking a little bit earlier with the pip package management. One has to install it with the packager. It has a React front end, so it's what's called a SPA, or a single page application on the front end. It has Django REST framework APIs on the back end. And as I said, it plugs into the OpenEdX LMS. Our initial target, we're developing it against Ginkgo. When Hawthorn comes out, we will start working to develop it against that. Some of the data that we display are time series data, where we're capturing data points of, well, what is the activity today? And so we'll capture that into models in the Figures app. Right now, we're initially going to be doing it with a cron tab to run a script, run a management task to do the loading. That's the simpler solution. Originally, we were looking at doing it with a celery beat, but that needs like a custom installation on edX platform. So we were going with a simpler install to help make it easier for people in the community to play around with it. And we also opening up REST APIs in edX platform, both in order to limit data, like we're looking for just a course index, like the course name, ID, and say the org and the run, instead of like all the course information, plus filtering, adding filtering so that we can filter and select on certain properties of courses, like courses that belong to an org or courses that have a certain keyword in the name. And so our design goals in the short term are provide a baseline workable app that will address our customer needs and replace the app that we have developed internally in order to address the customer's individual reporting needs. Get feedback from the community. And so in order to get feedback from the OpenEdX community, we want to make this easy to install and have the code be approachable, easy to understand, and contribute. So those are goals right now. Long-term goal is to build out community collaboration, get with the feedback, and get folks to add in features. Figure out how can we improve this and make this something that is really owned by the greater community and usable by the greater community. Continue to improve data access and filtering in order to help extract the data for analytics, to help people understand really what's happening with their courses, and also provide a flexible reporting. Right now, what we have is our canned fixed reports that are hard-coded, and so make that so it can be user-driven reporting and have this run on, on the LMS so that the footprint is smaller. So now I'm going to start showing you the UI. Any questions before I do that? Okay.
One question.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a tough one. When do you think the cron job approach will be insufficient? Because sometimes a cron job takes like 25 hours, and then you were gonna run into successive tail problem. So how fast is it?
Well, right now, when the slowest part of it right now with running our existing reporting is pulling grades data. And that right now for, I can't say exactly how many learners, I'd say in the high hundreds, low thousands, is taking like a couple of hours. And so with that,
John, do you guys have persistent grades enabled on your platform?
I would love to learn more about this.
Yes, because that will reduce that to be minutes instead of hours.
Excellent. Thank you, Nimisha.
Yes, and it is actually on our plate to write up the migration story. So with the Hawthorn release, we're hoping that we'll provide enough information to other OpenEdX operators of how to enable persistent grades and backport their courses to have their grades persistent. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Not to drill too much, but Nimisha, will that also speed up pipeline processing in Insights?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's orthogonal.
Okay, that's it. Just want to check. Thanks.
Yep.
One other question. Sorry if I missed this. What is the cron job actually doing? Is it hitting APIs, or is it like connecting directly to the database and moving data around?
So the cron job will be running a Django management command. That is the workaround right now.
Okay, got it.
So right now,
management command lives in your edX figures repo?
And pardon?
The management command lives in your edX figures repo?
It will. That is one of the features I'm working on now.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
I'm doing a combination. I'm discovering. I've been reaching out to the community some, but I've also been doing a lot of discovery, digging into student module to understand how the course structure works and starting to learn about module store. So I'm kind of exploring where my limit of like the documentation, going through the codes, and when I run into an area that I just don't understand, reach out to the community and ask, what does this mean? So what you see right now, this is when you go to the, when you open up the Figures main page, you see the site-wide metrics dashboard. This shows here front and center the monthly active users along with links to navigate in other areas of Figures. The dashboard right now, that is this page here, reports links to what we'll have as a future feature are these flexible reporting, which I mentioned in the slides, and a widget that provides a search bar and a quick navigation so that you can quickly find courses, or let's see, and then navigate to a course and then see what the course specific metrics would be. Also on the dashboard, you see what the difference is of like what would be. Now, I just have to state this is mock data right now, what we're dealing with. We're working on wiring up actual data. But what you would see here is what the active users for the whole site for the month, what the delta is from the previous month, and then click on this link, which is not currently wired up, but see what history will be going back in past months of what the active users, so you can see what the trends are. Below the top of the dashboard are 4 cards, each with individual metrics. We will be renaming them what they actually are going to be named and filling in the appropriate text, but where we're implementing is card 1 shows the number of the total enrolled learners with the change since last month. Card 2 shows the average course progress. How much are the learners completing courses overall for the site with the delta from last month. Card 3, the average number of days for learners to complete the courses. And card 4 shows the user course completion for this month with the change since last month. Below these metrics cards are a list of courses with basic course data and a top-level, high-level metrics for the courses, so that you can see at a glance, just generally assess, what's the activity, what's the health of each of the courses. Right now we have a small list, and we will have to address, either infinite scroll or pagination. So that is coming, if you had a question on that. But also note that we are able to sort on specific attributes of the courses. So, starting with sorting alphabetically, number of learners enrolled, average progress, average time for completion, number of completed learners. So one can quickly look at a glance and look at, where, let me see if this does in reverse. Nope. So basically what we've got right now is ordering from, let's see, sort by enrolled learners. All right, from low to high. So this is something that provides a quick view and, something I'd like to implement, being able to sort up, be able to do a reverse index too. Going on to jump to specific courses, we'll go to the edX demo course, is that you see some basic information on the course, when the course started, the number of learners currently enrolled. Below this, you see a list of all the individual sections in the course and where the number of learners would be who have completed that section or are on that section of completion. This is a work in progress. It may look differently from this. One of the things that I'm working on figuring out are extracting the section data. I've got some of that, but describing the section data along the list here, and then seeing, well, what sections can we actually say a learner has accomplished? And so far I can see that we can say that, I found that we can say a learner's accomplished if there is a gradable section, but I need to dig in more to understand if we can show progress on areas that a learner has gone through based on the state of that section in the student module on a modified date, for example. So I'm interested if anybody can help me understand the data model around there a little bit better, and that'll save me some time in developing this. But to wrap it up on this part is we're looking at a chart so that one can see how are learners progressing in the course. And below this are the same similar 4 cards that I showed in the site daily metrics, except this time they're for the particular this particular course. Below this, we're displaying learner demographics. And right now we're starting with a couple of learner demographics. We're starting with gender and country. And if these information are available in the user registration, then we'll have them in the user profile model, and we can extract them and put them here in the statistics and be able to say, whether, the learner is female, male, or other, which would be like, they haven't signed up. If we click on it, then you see country, and then list the countries for the learner. So it's kind of a quick navigation to understand a little bit more about your learners in your course. And then we will be adding in per learner info, so one can list the learners in your course, and then in the future, be able to go in and get into more information. Perhaps then when we click on the per learner, we can then link to the learner information in the instructor dashboard as a quick navigation to get to there. And that is basic, and I'll just go quickly on for the future on reporting, is that what we'll have is a customized reporting interface where users will be able to create reports and then be able to see the report data here and be able to download something like in a CSV file or maybe a JSON file, depending on what our customers' needs are and what people in the community, what they find that their needs are. And that is basically it on the demo. And so, any questions?
Cool. Yeah, no, this is great. When do you intend for this to be, I don't know, it looks usable, but when do you intend to officially release it, or is it imminent?
So I'm working on filling out the APIs, and so I'm working as much as I can in advance of the conference because I want to have as much functionality there. But as far as having it actually usable, like in a production mode, I'm planning on, I'd like to roll this out to our enterprise customers at Appsembler over the summer.
Great.
And then from there, test it out, or basically early adopter, make sure that it works, more broadly deploy it, and then work on our multi-tenancy in order to deploy on the top of it.
Okay. Great. Any questions for John?
Yeah, I have a question. This is Ed from edX. I wonder how tightly coupled is Figures with the platform, meaning are the management commands expecting to run in the context of a platform and having access to all of its models, or is it relying on APIs such that it can run in a separate process? What's the current design there?
So for the immediate future development is connecting to the data models directly in edX platform for basically live data, and also connect with models where we've stored time series data in the Figures app. I am also opening up in Figures is that the metrics models are accessible, modifiable, writable, and readable in the REST API. They need to be for the front end. And so with that, in the future, one could we move from acquiring data from directly from the models to acquiring data via a REST interface means that we could move this app onto its own server in the future.
Okay.
Should we find that that's useful?
Thanks. No, that's helpful. Useful context that there'll be more conversations about it at the conference, obviously, but we are doing a lot of discovery and kind of architecture around what the relationship between our front ends and back ends are going to be on the platform. So I don't want to be in a position where we're undermining anything that you guys are doing, but it's likely that a lot of where the magic happens is going to migrate further up the stack and closer to the client. So the fact that you're doing API first development makes a ton of sense, and sounds like you're doing the right things.
Thank you, Edward. And one of the things that is a challenge, and I've done what to me is a workaround, but it's a trade-off in order to speed up testing. I wanted to make sure that I could test edX figures, quote, unit test, loosely phrase it, because we're testing the view and serializer and model, but testing figures in isolation. And so with that, mocking models in edX platform, because I found it quite a challenge to try to trim down the test settings for the LMS. And so with that, the issue is, as you just say, when we move to another version of edX platform, things are going to break. And so with that, I'm interested in to chat with some folks to learn more on integration test strategies.
And Jeremy is online, is he? Oh, and Jeremy recently took the position of leading our testing efforts. So Jeremy, do you want to say a few words, and we can follow up also with John afterwards? But
sure. So we have the plugins right now, like the edX completion and so forth, that are plugging into edX platform, edX enterprise, and we've come up with some testing strategies for those that are working okay in the short term. We'd like to be doing more like contract tests and things like that moving forward. So yeah, coming up with some ideas internally, and also if we can get more feedback on the kind of obstacles you're hitting in testing this, or the kinds of things you'd like to be able to do, we'd love to hear that also, so we can make sure that the solutions we're coming up with work for this use case also.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Excellent. Okay, so just a reminder that this is being recorded, so if you want to share this with your friends, there'll be a means to do that shortly. Any other topics that people want to bring up in the short time we have left before we have to say goodbye?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I've heard rumors that you're gonna, like the OpenEdX team is going to open more space for community members to do actual reviews and to empower them to become external committers. Rumors, pun intended.
Rumors. Wow, that's a really interesting rumor. I think the idea is to be more transparent and to be more engaging and to be better communicators and to facilitate two-way communication. The governance in place is the governance that we're probably going to maintain going forward. That may change in the future, but there's no plan at the moment to change like who can commit code. I think the first steps that I want to take as kind of community facilitator is just to make sure that we're transparent, that we have more things like this, that we're all communicating on the same page. Because ultimately, I want everyone in the community to be successful. And I think that we as, purveyors of OpenEdX, it's our job to help make you successful. So that's kind of where I'm coming from there. Over time, I would like to see more collaboration. And I think you're going to see some plans in the next couple of months to create these sites and places for collaboration. Like, for example, if you look at figures, I would love to have a place somewhere in openedx.org where people could collaborate on figures. Right now, we don't really have that place. And so that's something that I'll have an eye towards facilitating, hopefully later this year. But that's definitely something that I want to get going on, because I think there's a lot of creative energy in the community, and I want to, you know, tap into that and make it possible and empower people to collaborate and create more, and to make a community that's greater than the sum of its parts. That's the ultimate goal. Sure.
Thanks for explaining that. I mean, it's a lot more for me. It is a lot more than just rant or anyway, like, or asking for more priority for my PR, because I understand that there is the community is a lot larger than just Omar doing a PR. But it like on the practical side, it affects my decision whether, for example, I would create something that I contribute to the platform, or I try to isolate it in a self-deployable app, which might make my life easier on the short term. But I really appreciate the fact that once things go into the platform, it will essentially enjoy a longer term of maintenance. Therefore, it needs to be prepared very well. So, I mean, this is what I care about: the decision whether should I make this upstream, or should I make it isolated, for example, like we did for edX Figures and a bunch of other stuff. So, I'm not sure how many people are affected by this other than us at Appsembler, but it really helps to, I don't know, like, make it more open, or make it easier for people like me to decide upfront, like, to try to have a guess whether this actually will make it or not.
Got it. Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay, let's, you know, we will be continuing that conversation for a good period of time, I can imagine. And I look forward to having that conversation with, you know, all of you in Montreal. Speaking of Montreal, before we depart, I did want to give a shout out. Of course he left. Actually, one of our hosts in Montreal was on this call for almost the entire hour, and he literally just departed as I was about to introduce him. So I guess maybe next time it was Robert. He was on he was listed as one of the attendees. You'll get to meet him in Montreal. I was hoping to introduce him here briefly, but best laid plans. Anyway, thanks everybody for stopping by. So again, second Thursday every month, send me things that you want to do for show and tell, and let's keep this same cadence going, and figure out what we want to talk about later. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. It was great.
Thank you. Thanks.